The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Training Camp Confidential, day number 6 for the Washington Commanders. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. You know what it is. Post up. Take command, I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this special edition where we're going to cover the first 6 days of training camp. I've got a video that I'm going to release tomorrow that will talk about stock up, stock down for the first 6 days of camp. Some guys have stood out. Some guys not so much. Need to see a little bit more from them. And honestly, I hate to really put the spotlight on guys who haven't necessarily taken advantage of opportunities thus far. Again, I haven't been out at the camp personally myself, so I'm literally talking about, second and third hand information. However, just gathering all the information, some guys have not taken full advantage of some opportunities that have been presented to them. And so we'll talk about those guys and then some of the situations. I think some of these situations that have presented themselves also not great or also really good for the team. So we'll talk about all those things tomorrow, stock up, stock down. But tonight, we're going to chronicle practice number 6. No pads today, no shells, right? So just helmets today as they took kind of a break after the first day of pads, kind of winding down. No practice tomorrow for the team. They'll be off. So we'll talk about what day 6 looked like. Talk about some guys that have stood out. I'm going to give you the guy that I feel like, based off of, again, off of others, perception of what they've seen and what I've gathered just reading all of the different tweets and talking to people that have been there. And I've talked to various people that have been at camp, some that have been there every single day. And I'm going to give you the guy that I think has been the biggest standout. Now, really, there's a position group that has just stood out, period, in general. But I'm going to give you the guy that I feel like has stood out the most to start training camp the first 6 days. But we're going to talk about the guys that stepped to the podium today. DQ stepped to the podium. Heard from Mikey Sainristil. Also heard from Noah Brown for the first time since he had the health scare, the injury scare, I should say, back in mandatory minis. So we'll talk about all the things that were said at the podium today and so much more. But we start the show with house cleaning, as we always do here on Training Camp Confidential. And that takes us to the news that we got straight from the horse's mouth. Dan Quinn this morning told us at the top of his press conference that offensive guard Nate Herbig has been placed on the reserve retired list. Forget about the reserved part. Nate Herbig retired this morning. And I don't know if that news hurt anybody more than it hurt me, your man, Louie T. The guys, the Commanders Kings, they text me, Rio texted me this morning in particular, and he let me have it. And he said, hey, looks like your boy he said, looks like your boy is going to be back this season. And I had been running, and I mean absolutely hauling ass away from bringing back your boy from last year. Thank you for making me right, Jaden. Oh man, what is his goddamn name? I'm gonna tell y'all his name. Michael goddamn Dieter. That's his stinking ass name. And I'd been running from Michael Dieter. I'm like, nope. Michael Dieter ain't gonna be on the team this year. He ain't gonna be. We got too much depth. Michael Dieter ass ain't coming back. And Rio was like, looks like Michael Dieter's gonna be back. I was like, shit. Looks like Michael Dieter will be back. You come to that realization of what just happened. And look, Nate Herbig had been struggling with a rotator cuff injury that pretty much ended his stint with the Steelers, came here, was never fully healthy. And so, guys, sometimes, and this is one of those things that happens from time to time. And as fans, we lose sight of this because, we're so locked in on the football part of things. And I always try to remind you guys that, hey, these dudes are human. Like, these aren't robots. These aren't machines. These are humans. And it's the same thing that happened to Andrew Luck. You get tired of rehabbing. You get tired of being injured all the time. You start thinking about quality of life. It's not fun anymore. And you're just like, I want to do this shit no more, man. You ever been at a job and you're just like, I'm sick of this shit. And it could be the worst job you've ever had, and you were sick of it from day one. It could have been a job that you liked at first. You liked the people. Some of the people that you liked left, got other jobs. You were left there. You're like, you know what? I don't like the people anymore. That was the only thing keeping me here. I can't stand this shit. I want out. When you don't love something anymore, or you don't like it anymore, or you can't stand it anymore, remember, football is supposed to be fun. Yeah, they're getting paid to do this, but it's also supposed to be fun. When football stops being fun and it becomes a job, probably time to go. And for Nate Herbig, that day was today. So I wish Nate Herbig nothing but the best in all of his future endeavors. But God damn it, that means that we're going to have Michael Dieter on this roster more likely than not. And that just absolutely makes me cringe. It was a very nasty start to my morning. I will say that. So Nate Herbig no longer on this roster. He has decided to retire. And that depth that we talked about on the offensive line still remains, right? Still a very deep team, especially when Sam Cosmi comes back. Speaking of Sam Cosmi, damn, he looks good. Week 1, I'm telling you. Maybe not week 1. But he's not going to start the season on the PUP list. That, my friends, is a guarantee from me, your man, Louie T. That said, I'm sticking to my guns until it isn't true. All in for week 1 with Sam Cosmi. That would really increase the depth on this offensive line tremendously. Then you could send Nick Allegretti to the bench, and they've been giving Nick Allegretti center reps. Still doesn't mean that we're not going to have Michael Dieter here. It feels like Michael Dieter now is a shoo-in to be on this roster. Anyhow, let's get to practice itself today. We'll start with guys that were fielding punts today. Obviously, Jalen Lane, who was drafted in the 4th round out of Virginia Tech, specifically to return punts and kickoffs. Right now, punts seem to be the main objective for him. Kickoffs, I think he's going to be back there along with Austin Eckler to start the season off. When they feel it is necessary, Debo might take his place back there, and they go with Austin Eckler and Debo. But as of right now, he is, for me, penciled in as the, number 1 prime kick return and punt returner this season. So obviously he was back there on punt returns. We talked about KJ Osborne having experience doing it at Buffalo, not Buffalo Bills, but Buffalo University, the University of Buffalo, where he was a big-time playmaker before transferring to the University of Miami for his final year of collegiate football. So he has experience returning punts. I'm looking at him. Kaz Allen was also back there, and so was Demetric Felton. I'm looking at KJ Osborne as a guy that not necessarily is going to make this roster because of his special teams experience and the ability to return. Because I literally brought this up yesterday. It's crazy that this was a thing today, because I literally said, what happens to the punt return game if Jalen Lane can't be back there for whatever reason? I think the answer to that is KJ Osborne. Now, here's the thing that is really interesting. I hope we never have to find the answer out this season, is what happens if KJ Osborne doesn't make the roster, but he's on the practice squad. And again, if you cut KJ Osborne, there may be another team out there that is very interested. He's a veteran that has a track record and and has a body of work that suggests he should be on an NFL roster. If a team doesn't love their depth at receiver, KJ Osborne is a guy that shouldn't be allowed to be on your practice squad. Now, again, you get to keep certain guys on your practice squad and protect them. But if KJ Osborne, who does not have to clear waivers to sign with an NFL team because of his veteran standing in the league, he gets cut, doesn't make the 53-man roster, which right now is up in the air. He could easily go sign with another team and be on their active roster, right? So the question then becomes, if KJ Osborne isn't here, what do you do then? But let's not worry about that as much as, what if it happens in game? What if something happens to Jalen Lane in game? What do you do then? Who do you put back there? I'm pretty sure that with how Dan Quinn is so detail oriented, that they'll be prepared for a situation where they'll have an emergency punt returner. You just don't know who that guy is. I'm assuming if Jalen Lane is out 2 to 4 weeks, KJ Osborne's on your practice squad. Well, boom, you just move KJ Osborne up and problem solved, right? The question is, what happens if KJ Osborne isn't here, or it happens in game? But again, another story, and we may get that answer during the preseason. They may put, because last year we saw them put like 15 different guys back to return punts and kicks. So we may get that answer in the preseason. They're like, oh, okay, I see what they would do, right? But in any event, because Demetric Felton's not making his roster, neither is Kaz Allen. So Allen could end up being on the practice squad. Maybe Demetric Felton ends up on the practice squad. I doubt that. But neither one of those guys are making the team. Osborne still has a shot, but he may not make the team either. So anyway, I digress. So you look at practice today, it was another uneven day for the offense. The offense continues to make splash plays, but they continue to struggle with consistency. And unfortunately for them, their lack of consistency, I believe, their lack of consistency, to me, stems from no Terry McLaurin, which is a problem. And I've already outlined that in the last couple practices, that the offense is a bit sloppy because of the lack of consistency of a true number one receiver. And then, Noah Brown being in and out doesn't help, but that's not the reason why there's been struggles offensively. It's not like Noah Brown's going to come in and change the game for you. So there's been an up and down nature to the offense. They've been trying a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts. So again, it's understandable that there's been some struggles with the first team offense. But again, I always go back to, there's no number one wide receiver, and that puts everything in flux. When you have Jaden Daniels, though, you have a shot. But because he is who he is, doesn't mean you don't give him weapons, right? Like, that's the thing you have to guard against is, oh, it's Jaden Daniels, oh, it's Aaron Rodgers when he was in his prime, or, oh, it's Patrick Mahomes, or, oh, it's Josh Allen, or, oh, it's Lamar Jackson. Don't worry about it. They don't need top flight weapons. They'll make someone good. That's not supposed to be the thought process. You want to surround those guys with as many weapons as possible, at least 1 or 2 elite weapons, so that they can go to work and go to war with guys that they know, if all else fails, I can rely on this guy and this guy. For Jaden right now, those 2 guys are Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz. One of those guys is not present right now. So that's a problem for this offense. They're struggling. They're splash plays every day, whether it's the Jalen Lane catch 2 practices ago. Today, Deebo Samuel had a great diving catch, that was a dot from Jaden. Yesterday, it was Jaden in the corner of the end zone to Deebo, right? Deebo's been the one consistent receiver. Duh. he's supposed to be the one guy that's continuing to make plays, whether it's the first practice, the first play of 11 on 11 and a fade route from Jaden to the diving catch today. Debo's been one of the few guys that's been consistent at the receiver position. But again, when the names at the receiver position are Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Chris Moore, KJ Osborne, Ja'Cory Brooks, like if those are the names at the receiver position, you're in trouble. Lots and lots of trouble. And we keep hearing about how good the defense has looked and, how good the secondary has been. Yeah, of course they have. I just named the receivers that they're going up against. So again, hate to be the bearer of bad news, or I hate to burst your bubble, but not actually the best group of wide receivers that exists. So yeah, the offense continues to be spotty at best. But again, I don't put any of this on Jaden, and the offensive line kind of in flux. Why? Same thing I talked about with the receiver room. You're moving parts around. It seems like every other day. Laramie Tunsil's not practicing. Vet rest day, it feels like. Or you want to get Wiley in there at right tackle. Now Wiley's at left tackle. Now Josh Connolly Jr. is in at right tackle. And so you're moving parts around and it's not consistent. Coleman's your first year starter at guard. And, so there's a lot of moving parts here. Allegretti went from left to right guard. Not that big of a deal, but still a big deal. There's no Sam Cosmi. So they're trying to figure it out while you're moving around pieces. Same thing could be said for the receiver position. I can sit here and make a bunch of excuses, but at the end of the day, the real test will be when this team lines up against New England in joint practices. We'll see when it's their best against our best. And one of their best, Christian Gonzalez, just hurt himself in practice today. He will not be playing against the Commanders next week in joint practices, nor the preseason game. So that sucks because, again, it's another opportunity for, this team to get some really good work against the other team's best. Christian Gonzalez is their best corner. He's not going to play, so that doesn't help us get better. However, it'll be interesting to see how the offense looks against New England's defense. They went out, made a bunch of changes in the offseason. Mike Vrabel's come in there. I think Mike Vrabel's one of the more underrated coaches in the NFL. So I think he's going to whip that defense. I don't know what that offense is going to look like, right? But I expect him to whip that defense into shape and have them playing some semblance of good football. That'll be a good test for this team offensively because it hasn't been consistent to start this first 6 practices of camp. It's been spotty, up and down, hit or miss, splash plays, but no consistency. The run game has lacked outside of Bill. And really, this isn't a knock on the running backs necessarily, as it is the offensive line isn't creating holes. The D-line really dominating up front. Secondary is taking advantage of a very, very weakened wide receiver core, dominated them, stuck to them like glue, forced tough throws for the quarterbacks. At times, Jaden is showing why he's one of the best in the league because he's throwing these dots where only his guy. We saw the Jalen Lane pass. Are you kidding me? He's done that time and time again throughout camp, but there's only so many times you can do that, right? So, again, been spotty. Today was another one of those days, but I digress. Defensively, you can't help but continue to highlight the exploits of this secondary. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the secondary and what they were able to do. Put a pin in that. Kane Madrano. We get a Kane Madrano sighting today. He gets his first interception of camp. Obviously, this one not off of Jaden Daniels, but off of Sam Hartman. I talked about this before camp started. There's still a real competition for who's QB3. I still believe it's Sam Hartman when it's all said and done. You want the young guy here. You want him, getting live action. I think he's going to play the vast majority of this preseason. They really want to see what they have in Sam Hartman this preseason. But Josh Johnson is taking, second team, third team reps. Same with Sam Hartman. Both have taken them There have been days where Josh Johnson is taking second team reps because Marcus Mariota has been in and out of the lineup. Right now, there's an undisclosed, I don't want to say it's an injury, but similar to what they did with him last year. Remember, he got hurt in the Jets game last year, and then we didn't see him the rest of the preseason. They're gonna take it slow with Marcus. He's a veteran. They know what he's capable of. I think if nothing else, we learned our lesson about Marcus Mariota last year, that if he doesn't play a single snap of preseason, if he doesn't play a single snap of the joint practices, we're fine, right? Marcus is fine. I think we should at least understand that Marcus Mariota is good and he doesn't have to play in these preseason games nor these joint practices to be ready for the regular season. That said, you want him to get reps, but it's going to be interesting to see if Marcus doesn't play in these preseason games, which I don't expect him to. Maybe he'll play in the Cincinnati game because that's the only game I think Jaden may play in. It'll be interesting to see who the second quarterback coming into the game will be. Because they've obviously mixed it up. But Hartman threw the pick. He was actually really good today. Sam Hartman was, until he threw the pick to Kane Medrano. That clip is up on the Commanders X account. So if you want to see Kane Medrano making the play, go up there. They've got the clip of that of Kane Medrano reaching behind him, catching the football. That's supposed to be his specialty, being able to drop into coverage, make plays on the football. So that was a good play to see. The Deebo Samuel catch that I talked about and referenced earlier is also there if you haven't seen it yet. So check that out as well. But the defense is specifically the secondary has been one of the standouts of camp. Mikey Sainristil with another strong day today. You know what? I'll be honest with you. We'll keep it a beam with y'all. I was a little bit nervous about Mikey making the move to nickel. Not necessarily because I didn't think he could do it, but because he didn't look, all that sharp last year in the first two games of the season before going outside against Cincinnati in week 3 and staying there pretty much the rest of the season. But Candy Waller, talked me off the ledge. She was like, bro, like he was a rookie. It was his first 2 games. I mean, like, what are we talking about here? And she was absolutely right. And I talked about Mikey being an even better player because of the experience he got playing outside last year, how that helps you in coverage, how it helps you know, like, what the guy outside is doing, what that requires of you as an inside defender. It just makes him a stronger guy from a communication standpoint, a knowledge standpoint. And it seems to be paying off huge dividends because Mikey Sainristil has been outstanding in the entire, training camp period to this point. He's been a standout, one of the guys that's been there. Even when catches are made in his vicinity, it's having to be a perfect ball. It has to be in the perfect spot because Mikey is playing outstanding coverage. We've always said, you can't defend the perfect pass, but that's what Mikey is forcing quarterbacks in camp to have to do. Make the perfect pass, right? Guys are going to have to make extraordinary catches because he's right there in your hip pocket. But to me, the guy that is, and Quan Martin also playing really well. I'm hearing so many good things about Quan Martin, Mikey Sainristil. Marshawn Lattimore has been really solid throughout camp. Carlin Vigors is another name, had another pass breakup today. He and Michael Gallup seem to be going sort of like DQ talked about Brandon Coleman and Javon Kinlaw kind of going head to head, and those guys really, giving each other work and getting each other better. Seems like Carlin Vigors and Michael Gallup are constantly going head to head with one another. But he had a pass breakup today. Again, did Carlin Vigors a nice pass breakup. And it seems like every day I'm hearing Carlin Vigors making a play. Yeah, he's giving up some plays, but he's also making some plays. But when it's all said and done, to me, the guy that has been the biggest standout of camp thus far is second-round pick, rookie cornerback, Trey Amos. People can't stop gushing about this guy. I've talked to so many people that have been out to camp, at least 5 or 6 different people. 2 or 3 of them have been out there every single day. And the name, when I asked them, who's the guy that's standing out to you the most, without hesitation, Trey Amos. without hesitation. A close second is Mikey Sainristil, but without hesitation, Trey Amos, right? And so to hear his name continue to ring out in the streets, it makes me feel good because I felt like we stole on draft day. That second day of the draft when Trey Amos was still available at the selection, and you go back to Adam Peters in the war room watching Commander's Log, and he's saying, nah, hey, Steve, we're going to play, right? I think that might have been the second round, might have been the fourth round. But he said, hey, we're going to stay here and pick, regardless of what. We're going to stick here and pick. And they took Trey Amos, and they felt like they got to – he told him, you are in consideration for our first round pick. So it tells you just how high he was on their board and how highly they thought about him. And to see teams pass on him because of a perceived back injury or whatever, to see him coming out and doing the things that he's doing, and to hear people continue to sing his praises. And the tape tells me, like, I was so enamored with him watching his tape. I liked him more than, Hairston and some of these other guys in the draft. There weren't many guys that I had that I said to myself, he's going to be better than Trey Amos in this draft. The only thing that Trey Amos to me lacked was experience. Probably the reason why I didn't have him higher in my list of corners. I think I had him as my 4th rated corner in this draft class. And the only reason I didn't have him higher is because it was a small sample size. Didn't play a ton. But I loved it what I saw from him. 1 year of experience was the thing that probably gave me a bit of pause. But it was 1 year of experience, not to mention he played in the SEC his entire career. But it was 1 year of experience in the SEC. That goes a long way. And it's translating. This early portion, I would love to see him get out there against Terry. And some of these, and to see him against the best we have to offer. We just, again, this is the issue that I have with going too overboard with my praise. But you already knew how I felt about the secondary, man. Specifically the corners. I told you what I thought of them before training camp even started. I said this is the best cornerback room in the entire division, in the entire NFC. It is the 4th best cornerback room in the league. So you already know how I feel about this group in particular. And I love that they're doing what they're supposed to do against an inferior group of wide receivers. Because that's what this group is without Terry McLaurin. An inferior group of wide receivers. Dominate their ass. Put them to sleep. Here's a pillow and a blanket. Put them to sleep. Need a book? Need a bedtime story? Here you go. And Trey Amos, there's a nice pass breakup, him against Luke McCaffrey today. I know that doesn't impress you. Again, that goes back to my initial point of there's no Terry. So now you're asking Luke McCaffrey to go be special as a number 2 wide receiver. Good luck with that, right? Like everybody's being asked to do things that they shouldn't be asked to do. And this is the issue with no Terry McLaurin, right? For those of you who say, oh, we don't need Terry, right? Trade him, don't give in to his demands, yada, yada, yada. I'm not telling you got to give in to his demands. That, again, 2 separate conversations. What he should be paid and what his value is. Those are 2 separate conversations. Maybe they're one conversation, and which is why Terry's holding out, because he understands his value to this team and what that should represent in the form of his pay. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is the defense continues to make plays. Guys continue to step up on that side of the ball. The defense has been the superior group to this point. They've been the more consistent group through the first 6 days of training camp. And that secondary, specifically the safeties or the corners, and to throw in an extra guy in the secondary, Quan Martin, have been really good to start training camp. But Trey Amos has been the standout of training camp to this point. And that should be music to your ears and should be a great sign of what this guy could potentially be in his rookie season and what he can ultimately bring to the table here to the Washington Commanders defense. So that essentially was, for me, day 6. It wasn't a lot because there weren't pads on, there weren't any shells on. So it wasn't a walkthrough. They got some real work in today, but this felt more like day 1 and day 2 of training camp than it did day 3, 4, or 5. So tomorrow, I think they're gonna have like a little walkthrough or whatever. I don't think it's like they're off. I think it's just a walkthrough tomorrow. They're off on Thursday. Then they come back for practice on Friday. I could have it backwards. They're off today or tomorrow, a walkthrough on Thursday, and then they're off on Friday, something to that effect. Either way, there's not going to be a lot of activity over the next 3 days. So we'll talk more about the first 6 days tomorrow, because there won't be much reporting because the media won't be out there at the park because there's nothing going on tomorrow. And so I'll, keep you entertained. I got a lot of stuff coming your way tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But in any event, we will get to what was said at the podium today by DQ and the 2 players that were at the podium today, Mikey Sainristil and Noah Brown. But before we get to them, we'll talk about what DQ said first. So let's talk about DQ and what he had to say at the podium for day 6 of training camp. He talked about Nate Herbig was the first thing that he talked about, his opening address to the media. He said this was a decision that Nate Herbig made totally on his own. And he wished him the best of luck moving forward. But Nate Herbig is no longer here, and that absolutely breaks my heart. I'm like mint condition. Breaking my heart. Yeah. Breaking my heart. That broke my heart because that means, Michael Dieter, your stinking ass is up. God damn it. The hope is we never got to see Michael Dieter in the game. Thank you for making me right, Jaden. Thank you. Thank you for making me right. He talked about in day 5 of training camp, the first and the only day of padded practice to this point, the loudest thump of practice to this point. We saw the play. We talked about it yesterday. It was the part of the thumbnail that I had yesterday. Bill versus Tyler Owens. And DQ talked about Bill's ability in the hole to jump cut twice, not once, but twice, to then get through the smallest of the tiniest of holes there. One jump cut, the second jump cut explodes through the hole. And then at the end of that tunnel is Tyler Owens waiting on him. He lowers his shoulder, meets contact. Owens doesn't take him to the ground because that's not what they're coached to do in this particular instance, but they want the thud, right? Lays a nice lick on him, but Bill stays on his feet and is able to finish the run. And it was a play that we appreciated from both sides. Owens with the thump, Bill with the ability to stay on his feet. And DQ said, we appreciate it as a staff so much. He said, we have plays that we show the team in the team meeting as these are the things we want to emphasize. These are the things we want to do. These are examples of how we get down. And then there are examples of things that we got to correct. We got to be better at. This is not our standard. He said that play was at the forefront of the plays they showcased to the team, that this is how we get down right here. This is what we want. So that was pretty cool. You got a second-year guy in Tyler Owens who's trying to carve out a niche for himself, and a rookie in Bill, who we think can have a massive impact this year, having one of the, better exchanges in camp to this point. And it was cool to hear the coach kind of talk about what that play, exemplified to this point of training camp. Then that led into a Tyler Owens conversation. And he talked about the exploration of Tyler Owens, how they're trying to figure out. Remember, Joe Witt Jr. told us before we even got to camp, hey, we got to figure out what's going on with Tyler Owens. Can he help us on defense or what? We know this dude is a demon on special teams. Can he help us on defense? And they've been trying him everywhere. And DQ was like, yo, we blitzing him. We got him down around the line of scrimmage in the box. We play him as an underneath defender. We got him in coverage man to man. We got him doing all kinds of shit. And it was good to see him, be there in the whole waiting on Bill. We're trying to figure out what Tyler Owens can bring to the table. And it's a pretty cool thing, man. What's really going to be the definitive moment for him and guys like him who are trying to carve out a niche for themselves with some real significant playing time is what you do in these joint practices and ultimately in the preseason games. Right? The joint practices might hold more weight than the actual preseason games themselves, but those preseason games are also going to carry some weight too. And what you do in those games may ultimately give the coaching staff confidence or take it away. So it's good to hear that Owens is getting an opportunity because there are a lot of Tyler Owens stands out there. We'll see what he's able to do with the opportunity that's being presented to him this year. DQ talked about Mikey Sainristil's leadership. Last year he was a rookie trying to figure it out. They asked him to do a ton of stuff, started him out at nickel, moved him out to boundary, and ultimately he was one of the guys along with Noah Igbenogany that helped save that secondary. He said that Mikey wasn't in a position to be a leader last year, but he said the beauty of Mikey last year, and he said this in the previous press conference, was that he was able to make adjustments on the fly last year. He said he was able to adjust similar to Jaden in his rookie season during the season, so it didn't have to take place in the offseason. And he always said about Mikey along with Jaden that those two guys were wise beyond their years. They were like veterans as rookies. So it's not a shock that, Mikey is conducting himself as a veteran in his second season. Similar to Brandon Coleman, like they bring in guys that are wise beyond their years. Josh Connolly is another one of those guys. Again, he's a rookie right now, so he's taking in information. But next year, I wouldn't be shocked to hear Josh Connolly Jr. giving advice to a young guy next year because he's another guy that feels like he's wise beyond his years. They seem to get these guys that seem to have this knack for just being wise beyond their age. And so Mikey Sainristil's leadership is something that DQ highlighted and said, this is what I expect from him. That's what he's demonstrated since we drafted him out of Michigan. This guy was a leader at Michigan. He was a captain at Michigan, and he's been nothing short of that here in Washington. So not a surprise. He talked about defensive versatility. He was asked about, was there an emphasis this offseason to give this defense more versatility? And DQ said, the versatility has always been there, which I thought it was a knock on the talent. Again, it was the first year they turned this roster over. There just wasn't enough talent here. He said the versatility has always been in the scheme. We just didn't always have the pieces. He didn't say that, but he insinuated that. He said the versatility has always been in the scheme. So if you just say that and then you leave it alone, he's telling you we didn't have the pieces to be versatile last year. And I talked about this 2 practices ago when I think Javon Kinlaw stepped to the podium and he was asked about, and Deron Payne, I think, in back-to-back days were asked about like the versatility of the defensive line. And I talked about, hey, we're ready for whatever. You wanna spread us out, throw it 48 times. We can do that. Like we can put 4 corners on the field. We can put, I don't necessarily know if we want to put, more than 3 safeties on the field. We probably can get away with 3, but it's a little slim pickings right now. But we can put 4 corners on the field, 2 safeties, 4 corners, and be straight. Like we can live in dime if we have to. We're gonna live in nickel because that's our base. And if you want to run the football and you want to force us to put 3 linebackers, If we got a healthy Jordan McGee, we can do that too. You want to run the football, we can get real stout on that defensive line, and we can put some big boys up there. Dietrich Wise. We can put Javon Kinlaw up there, Eddie Goldman. If you really want to get spicy, put Eddie Goldman up there and Cleveland Farrell and say, all right, try to run the football. Good luck. Right? I mean, Dorrance is going to be up there more likely than not, no matter what. And he stops to run too. So, like, however you want to do it, Deron Payne, whatever. Like, we can stop the run. Come talk to us. You want to pass the football a little bit? We can slim it down a bit. Hey, Vaughn, get out there. Frankie, you drop down. Give us another pass rush presence. Hey, Jacob Martin, you get out there. Frankie, you drop back, stay at linebacker. Like, we could get freaky. However you want to do it, we can do it. And he spoke to that versatility. We got the pieces now. Now, again, I'm not telling you that these pieces are elite necessarily, but these are pieces that we just didn't have access to a season ago. So, he talked about Marcus Mariota, and a question was asked about Marcus, not like Nikki Javala, I think, asked about Marcus basically kind of practicing off to the side and not really participating in the team drills. And he was like, yeah, we're going to do that with Marcus from time to time. Almost like he was sort of dancing around. Marcus probably tweaked something. Nothing major, similar to what he did last year in the preseason and didn't do anything else. He said we're going to be precautious with Marcus, as they should. None of us are clamoring for Marcus Mariota to be out there. We know what he's capable of. He showed us that he's more than capable if being thrusted into action. So that's not a big deal, but just something to bring up. He talked about Luke McCaffrey, and he said the question was specifically about Luke. And I don't know if we've seen a coach better at deflection than DQ. But this wasn't a deflection, but the question was basically Luke. And he said, another second-year player that really we're looking for a big leap from is Ben Sinnott. And he referenced the play with Ben Sinnott yesterday. There was a seam ball from Jaden where there was a blitz from the defense. Jaden recognized it, sent a signal to Ben, changed the play, changed and altered Ben's route. Ben noticed everything, was on the same page with Jaden, got up the field, big gain up the middle on a seam pass from Jaden to Ben Sinnott. And he said, that's what we're looking for in year two. He said, obviously, Ben is a guy that we continue to work with and think he's got a chance to be really special. And he said, Luke McCaffrey, same deal, right? He's put in the work this offseason. They put him in positions. He said, Luke was so smart in his rookie season. We put a lot on him, asked him to learn all of the receiver positions, and he came in and he did it. He exuded toughness. He did all the things, but he was still thinking with a quarterback mind. And he said, you think that's counterintuitive because you're like, hey, quarterback knows all the positions. It should be easy for him. That should be a help, but it's a hindrance at times when you're playing receiver and you're still thinking with a quarterback mind. And he's like, this year, you can see him thinking like a wide receiver. It's helping him play faster, and they expect more from him. To go back to Ben Sinnott for a second, one of the things that has stuck out in the first first six practices, a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. And this kind of goes back to my conversation with Logan Paulson. Logan Paulson said they got to find ways to get Ben Sinnott involved. Like, that's a coaching thing, right? Like, that's not a Ben Sinnott issue. And not necessarily an issue. Like, Zach Ertz is playing lights out. John Bates is one of the best blocking tight ends, in Logan Paulson's words, the best blocking tight end in the NFL. Those guys they're fixed in their roles on his roster as TE1 and TE2. So Ben Sinnott's just essentially picking up table scraps, right? They got to figure out a way to get him on the field. Like, if you're passing the football, it's okay to say, let's go and be in 12 personnel. It's okay to say that and put Ben Sinnott on the field and not John Bates, right? It's okay to go and, 13 personnel, fake the run, and get Ben Sinnott up the field vertically, or get Ben Sinnott out into the flats, get him the football wide open, and let him turn up the field and use his ability to run after the catch. And so far in camp, Ben Sinnott, they've been in more 12 and 13 personnel than any other package. I don't know if that's by design. I don't know if that's because Terry's not there. And, again, I could be over reading the situation. I could be making too much of it, but maybe they're making a conscious decision that we have to find ways to get Ben Sinnott more involved. We'll see. Whatever it is, I like it a lot. DQ was asked about his inspiration. There's a documentary coming out apparently about Alabama football, from Bear Bryant to Nick Saban. And DQ talked about coaching under Nick Saban for the Miami Dolphins for a couple of years in the NFL. And he started listing some guys that were inspirations to him: Steve Mariucci, Pete Carroll. He mentioned a coach that basically gave him his start and kind of gave him the tools he needed to be successful. So he mentioned a few names of guys that were really inspirational to him. He talked about Eddie Goldman. And, anytime DQ talks about a guy being square, playing square, translation, stop the run. I'm not asking you to come in there and get to the quarterback. I'm not asking you to do anything other than stop the run. And he talked about Eddie Goldman. The thing that I found interesting about his, dialogue about Eddie Goldman was that he said that Eddie Goldman was brought in based on his tape from last year. So this wasn't Eddie is a guy that's big, can plug up the middle of the field and be a space eater, and we're giving Eddie a lifetime achievement award from a couple years back. This was Eddie was really solid last year with the Falcons. I talked to Raheem. DQ has a great relationship with Raheem Morris, and so he was like, Raheem raved about him, and so they brought him in, and he plays square. And he said it like 5 times. So yeah, Eddie is here to stop the run. Not that you didn't already know that, but just a re-emphasis of that. The variety question came up. This was very similar to the versatility question, but the variety on the defensive line in particular was the route that Dan chose to go with answering this question. And he talked about guys like Eddie, Dietrich, and Javon who play square. I don't need to tell you what that means. So for those of you out there that's like, Louie T, you keep selling Dietrich Wise short on what he can do as a pass rusher. What if Dietrich Wise comes in here and has 8 sacks? He won't. Trust me, he won't. Dietrich Wise will come in here and stop the run, which is what he was brought in here to do. Play square. That's what Dietrich Wise is going to do. He's going to play square. Like Javon Kinlaw and like Eddie Goldman. Play square. Like Cleveland Farrell. Play square. He talked about heavy hitters in the locker room. So he was asked about what is a question that you wish would be asked by the local media that isn't asked that you would like to talk about more, which in itself was a weird question, but it was also an interesting question. And he said that there are certain guys that don't get a lot of publicity, that are leaders in that locker room, that people inside the building, inside those walls, understand their value to the team. And he mentioned 3 guys in particular: Nick Bellore, Jeremy Reeves, and Percy Butler. And while that last name may surprise you, there's a reason they just gave that man a 1-year extension. They could have let Percy Butler play out the final year of his rookie contract. None of us would have blinked. Hell, I was guilty of even referencing at one point that Percy may be on the bubble and he may not even make this roster at one point. That went away very quickly when I realized we don't have any goddamn depth at safety. What are you talking about? Cut Percy Butler? Are you out of your mind? And I also realized the value that he brings on special teams. You may not love Percy as a defender. You know, usually when he's on the field in the defensive capacity, he's Percival. But on special teams, he's a feed, and he's Percy with a capital P. They love him. And apparently they love him inside the building as a glue guy. And notice that all three of those dudes are special teams guys. So that was DQ's ode and nod to the special teams players that don't necessarily get as much love as guys on the defensive and offensive side of football. And DQ tends to do that. Like, he tends to bring an extra attention to the special teams guys because he wants to make sure you understand that that part of the game, he talks about it all the time. Like when he talks about, finding the margins and, finding ways to cut corners and, hitting yardage. He talks about special teams all the time. So that's not a surprise. And then the last question was about DQ being a teacher. And he said you could replace coach with teacher. So head teacher, right? He said that that's one of his favorite things to do. And, one of the things that I enjoyed last year as a fan of this team was the growth that we saw from players during the course of the season, whether it was from the start of camp all the way to the end of the season. Guys that were non-contributors, guys that were afterthoughts that ended up being key contributors, you saw them get better throughout the course of the year, whether it was a rookie, whether it was a veteran. You saw guys contribute here that we'd never envisioned being massive contributors, but here we were, late in the season, relying on guys that we didn't even think at one point would even make the football team, in certain instances. So to see, the teacher aspect of DQ, shine through, for him to talk about it and how much he loves it, it reminds me of his roots. And when you talk about DQ, the head coach, you would be remiss if you didn't talk about DQ, the teacher, because you got to remember DQ at his core, defensive line coach. DQ was in the trenches coaching these guys up, and he worked his way up the ladder and became a defensive coordinator. Again, when you're a coordinator, you're still a teacher. You're teaching guys your scheme and what you're expecting of them. And even though he was with the enemy, when he was with Dallas, DQ was having a blast. When they would make a play, when they would force a fumble, pick it up and run for a touchdown, when Deron Bland would catch another interception and run it for, DQ would be losing his shit. DQ loves it. He loves that. We need more of that here. More of guys on the defensive side making plays so that DQ can lose his shit, but he loves teaching it. He loves teaching. That's at his core. He'll never stop doing that. And he said that. And so that's part of, what makes DQ DQ. So that was DQ day 6 of training camp. Now let's get to Mikey Sainristil. Matter of fact, let's get to Noah Brown. Quickly, Noah Brown talked about his injury scare. He didn't elaborate on what it was. He didn't get into too many specifics or details. He just said he was happy to be back in time for training camp. Anytime you go down with an injury, it's nerve-wracking, but it wasn't anything serious. So he was happy that he was able to be ready for camp. But, they've been taking it slow with him, as DQ said they would. As DQ always says, when it comes to an injury, we're not gonna miss. You fill in the rest. He was asked about the wide receiver room, and one word in particular, a little wide receiver room wordplay. One word to describe the wide receiver room, and he said hungry. He chose the word hungry. I would describe that room as hungry as well. There's a lot of opportunity available. I, as a fan, am starving, so hungry for someone to step up in the absence of Terry McLaurin, and I'm still hungry, starving stomach touching back with the lack of guys stepping up. Chris Moore had a ball go through his hands today on a deep ball, dropped an opportunity. There were other guys that had opportunities to make big plays today, didn't do it. Also got to credit the defense on some of these plays, but this is an uninspiring group without Terry McLaurin. You put Terry back in the mix, and all of a sudden we feel a lot better about this room. You take Terry out, ain't a lot of shit here, to be honest with you. Again, Noah Brown as the number 3 option is a lot better than Noah Brown, the number 2 option. I don't need to explain to you why that is, right? Deebo Samuel, the second option, way better than Deebo Samuel, the number 1 option. Again, I don't need to explain to you why that is. Does anybody want to see Luke McCaffrey as your 3rd best wide receiver? I don't. I'm good. Maybe next year. Maybe the year after that. Maybe never. But I'm not looking forward to it in year 2. I'm good. Thanks. But no thanks. Jalen Lane, I'm intrigued. I want to see, but I don't want him as my permanent number 3 right now. Again, I might get 4 weeks in and be like, no. Jalen Lane is the 3rd best receiver on this team. Not there yet. Not even remotely close. So, hungry? Yeah, I would describe me as a fan. Hungry for more from this receiver room, and I'm starving right now, and they haven't fed me a damn thing. My appetite is through the roof for more production, more consistency from this group, and we've gotten nothing. He talked about being a commander and why he is happy to be here. This is his 3rd stop in his NFL career. Started out with the Cowboys, went to the Texans, now a commander for the 2nd straight year. And he just said, this is a great environment. It's a great place to be, somewhere where you want to come to work every day and you're happy to come to work every day. And it's not every organization is built that way where you're happy to come to work every day and produce. So that was pretty cool to hear. He talked about how the vets are impacting the young guys in the wide receiver room, giving them tips and pointers. And I just continue to go back to, we've got a good mixture in that wide receiver room of veterans and young guys. When Terry comes back, Terry's a vet. Deebo's a vet. Noah's a vet. KJ Osborne's a vet. Chris Moore is a vet. Then you got some young guys in there. Luke McCaffrey. Mike Gallup's also a veteran too. Yeah, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jacoby Jones, a bunch of young guys in there that can continue to grow and develop under the tutelage of some of these, veteran wide receivers. So it's a good mixture. And he's like, yeah, we're giving these young guys a lot of tips, showing them the ropes. And they're also, giving us a lot of life as veterans in that room as well. He talked about, I thought this was an interesting answer right here. So he was asked about Terry. Of course he was, right? I mean, how could he not be asked about Terry? And his communication with Terry and the opportunity it's presented for the rest of the wide receiver room. And he just completely ignored the communication portion with Terry. He went straight to the opportunity. He was like, nah, this is an opportunity for dudes to step up. I was like, God damn, Noah. Shit. And it was forceful too. It was like, it wasn't on some F Terry, we out here trying to get this money type shit. Like, dudes be having contract disputes every day, B. It wasn't one of them type situations, but it was damn close to it. I was like, God damn, Noah. Have some compassion for your fellow man out here trying to get to the bag. He couldn't relate. He was like, nah, we out here trying to eat at this receiver position thing. He out, we trying to take advantage. And I'm like, you guys are not doing a very good job of it right now. And then, so it forced the person who asked the question to come back and say, and what about your communication with Terry? He's like, oh, yeah. I mean, I talked to him or whatever. First of all, Noah treated it like Terry ain't been around. I mean, he's been around the last 3 days. But Noah was like, oh, yeah, I talked to him or whatever. Yeah, he cool. I was like, huh. Oh, really? Interesting. Like, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but I mean, shit. I digress. Mikey Sainristil. He talked about focusing in on his weaknesses and his strengths. He said that one of the things people tend to do, players in particular, when they're in the offseason trying to get better, is they focus on their weaknesses. They watch film, they look at the things that they struggle with, and they hone in on that. And he was like, I really wanted to hone in on the things that I wasn't good at, but also I wanted to get better at the things I already was good at. And I said, you know what? That's some good shit, bro. Because so often we are taught to try and get better at the things we're not good at. And for instance, I always talk about sports being a microcosm of life. Here's one of those life lessons from Louie T. So let's say that you're not great at public speaking, right? How many people actually enjoy public speaking? Speaking in front of large crowds makes people nervous, all right? Doesn't make me nervous anymore. I've done it so many times. It's not a big deal for me, but it doesn't mean you don't still get butterflies and you don't still get nervous when you're speaking in front of larger crowds. However, I was the guy that in college, I wanted to go first. I wanted to set the tone. That was my thing, right? But most people aren't good at public speaking. Most people don't look at public speaking and say, you know what? I want to get better at that. They just try to avoid it. Like, I don't want to do it, right? But if you have to get better at it, you might be great at writing papers, really poor at public speaking. You might say, you know what? In order for me to advance in my career, I need to get better at public speaking. But you may not really hone in on the fact that you're a great writer and you should continue to sharpen that tool that you have. Sharpen that pen of yours. It's excellent. You may just say, I know I'm good at that. Let me work on public speaking. Let me get better at that. And sometimes you lose sight of the thing that you're really good at. When it comes to football, I always talk about it in this regard. I always like to harken back to the Giants of that 2007 to 2011 space when they just kept adding defensive linemen every year, right? It was like, shit, you already got all of these dudes that can get after the quarterback. You got JPP. You got O.C. Umenyiora. You got Michael Strahan. Then they said, nope, we need to draft Matthias Kiwanuka anyway. I'm like, well, goddamn, you already got enough shit. You got Justin Tuck. You got all these guys. You don't need any more. It's like, yeah, no, we can use more. And they kept drafting guys because they took their strength and they made it stronger. And I always say, there's nothing wrong with taking your strength and making it stronger. That's how I feel about Jaden Daniels. So many people are like, hey, Jaden doesn't need a bunch of talent around him. It's nothing wrong with taking your strength and making him stronger by surrounding him with more talent. There's nothing wrong with doing that, you know? You shouldn't look at Jaden and say, he's so good, he can elevate lesser players, so let's not worry about adding talent around him. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. Every Batman should have at least a Robin around him. At least a Robin. Peyton Manning had Marvin Harrison. Joe Montana and Steve Young had Jerry Rice. Troy Aikman had Michael Irvin. Brett Favre, for a very short period of time, had Sterling Sharp. And there was a bunch of other guys. But he had Antonio Freeman for a very long time that he could rely on. I could go on and on. Jim Kelly had Andre Reed. Like, you need a guy, at least a guy. That's what Terry is for Jaden Daniels. Joe Burrow has his guy, and Jamar Chase, he has two guys, actually, and T. Higgins as well, and they're both young. That's pretty good shit there. But not everybody can have that type of situation, you know? But you don't want your strength to kind of go by the wayside. I think the term that I'm looking for, I got it in my head and I can't think of the exact word that I want to use. It's a good word too. It'll come to me, maybe, but I digress. He talked about strengthening his weaknesses and his strengths, getting stronger at the things that he's already good at. I appreciated that answer from him. He talked about chemistry on the team, and he said one of the things that he loves about this year coming back is that they brought a lot of the guys that was here back from last year, and they got the same staff back, so there's a lot of chemistry. There's a lot of things that they were able to do last year and kind of roll them over into this year, so to speak. And so they can build on some of the things they did a season ago. So he talked about the chemistry and how he thinks that's going to be a big help to this team in 2025. He talked about his work versus Debo this offseason and how they've made each other stronger. And it's very similar to what I talked about with Brandon Coleman and Javon Kinlaw. I talked about this earlier with Carlin Vigors and Michael Gallup, how they seem to always be paired up with one another. Debo and Mikey Sainristil have been paired up a ton this offseason and into the training camp period, which makes a ton of sense. Debo's more of a slot guy. Mikey's going to be playing the slot this year. So we've seen the clips of Mikey getting extra work in after practice with Debo, working on, playing releases and, taking away the slant, taking away the fade. How do you play it? What are some tells and things of that nature? And he's just gotten better and better working with Debo. And he said Debo has made him so much better. They've been going at it. They've been working with one another. They're making each other better. And he talked about iron sharpens iron and all of that. And this is exactly what Mikey needed. This is why I think he's excelling. There aren't a lot of guys to me right now in camp that are getting great work in the secondary because there's just not a lot of, everybody's not slotted where they're supposed to be, but Debo is slotted where he's supposed to be because it doesn't matter if he's your number one or number two option. He's going to be working primarily from the slot anyway. So for Debo, or rather for Mikey, he's still getting the work that he's supposed to be getting. And he's benefiting from going up against Debo every day. So he talked about that. I love this answer from Mikey. Atrophy. That's the word I was trying to think of. Atrophy. You don't want your strengths to experience atrophy. All right. So you know how my brain works. If I'm trying to think of something and I can't think of it, I'm going to continue to think of it. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm going to keep digging until I find it. I can't focus on the things that I should be talking about until that thing is resolved. It's resolved. So now we can move forward. Atrophy. He talked about discipline and winning time moments. And he said, that's the thing we lacked last season. And we got to be better. And I love that answer because, so often guys try to run from issues from a year ago, right? Or the year before. Like, they try to act like this is a media-driven thing, or they just ignore it altogether. Don't acknowledge it. And Mikey was like, we weren't good in winning time moments last year. We didn't make the plays. We didn't get the stops. We didn't force the turnovers. We didn't do the things we needed to do. Because the person that asked the question tried to make it seem like this defense made big plays in the postseason defensively, when they really didn't. Like, they didn't make any big plays in Tampa game other than Tampa fumbling the ball. Now, look, as I said many a times, Bobby Wagner had to recover that fumble. That was a big effing play. He had to recover that. You know, sometimes it's about being in the right place at the right time. And then Bobby had to reach out, and it ain't like the ball just went to Bobby and he just had to fall on it. Bobby had to stick his arm out there, put it in a very perilous state, and grab that bitch and snatch it back to his body. Bobby made a hell of a recovery. Go watch that shit. That's a hell of a fumble recovery by Bobby Wagner. That wasn't an easy fumble recovery. That was a great play. But the defense didn't force that turnover. The opportunity presented itself and they took advantage. They got some stops in that Tampa game, but that was more of the offense controlling that game, keeping Tampa's offense off the field, and minimizing what the defense really needed to do, right? The Detroit game, they made plays defensively. Forced sack, fumble by Dorrance Armstrong. That was huge early in the game. The pick six by Quan Martin, the pick by Mikey before halftime, the pick by Mikey at the end to set the offense up in great field position to really put their foot on the necks of the Detroit Lions and apply pressure in the game. The defense made plays in that game, but the defense also got gashed by Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, the two best players on the Lions offense. So while the defense was good, it wasn't great. And then obviously we saw what happened in the Eagles game. They didn't do shit in that game. So ultimately, they like the person tried to make it seem like the defense stepped up in the postseason. No, they didn't. And Mikey's like, nah, we was ass for real. we didn't step up in winning time moments. We got to be better. Right? They didn't step up in the Saints game. The Saints, errant throw. If that's a good throw, we lose the game on a 2-point conversion. Like, we didn't step up and make plays. We didn't get the stop against the Saints. We couldn't stop, Cooper Rush from scoring a touchdown down a stretch when we were playing Dallas the first time. Like, this defense didn't step up. And he said, in winning time moments, we got to be better. I love that. He talked about expectations for himself. He said, I know what to expect from myself in year 2 and what is expected of me from my teammates, what my coaches expect from me. I have a better, clearer picture of what they expect me to do in year 2 and what I expect from myself, and I need to go out and I need to execute. I wouldn't be shocked if Mikey Sainristil is a Pro Bowler this year. It wouldn't shock me in the least. He has the mindset, he has the ability, the skill set, and he has the temperament. It wouldn't shock me if Mikey Sainristil has 5 picks this year, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and 8 pass breakups. It wouldn't shock me in the least. And he's a Pro Bowler. All Pro even. Because you get All Pro nods and you get Pro Bowl recognition when your team is good. If we're good again, like last year we had 4 Pro Bowlers. I think we have 2 Pro Bowlers and 4 All Pros. You be good again this year, and you're gonna have 6 or 7 Pro Bowlers. Mark my words. Do it again. See what happens. He could be one of them. Then he talked about his relationship with Trey Amos. How last year he was a mentee. This year he's a mentor. And how Trey Amos is a sponge, and he's like, Trey Amos isn't your, standard run-of-the-mill rookie. He's like, Trey is like, he said, what is he, 22, 23 years old? Like, he's come in here and he's mature. Same thing we said about Mikey last year. Same thing we said about Jaden last year. Guys that come in and are mature beyond their years. And so you don't feel like they're a rookie. You don't feel like, I remember the staff last year talking about Jordan McGee. Doesn't feel like he's a rookie. Feels like he's been in the league 7, 8 years. The injury was what kept him from really shining last year. But I think he's going to shine this year. Obviously, remaining healthy will be the key for him. That seems to be one of the things that they do is they draft guys that just get it. Not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, that are wise beyond their years, that get it on and off the field, and the intellect shines on the field in the film room, and they can take the information that they've gathered and put it to use on the field. And Amos, he said, is one of those dudes. I told you, from the people I've talked to, Trey Amos has been the standout of camp to this point. He's been the standout in camp to this point. So, not a surprise. And he said it's been fun playing alongside him to this point. So, anyway, I digress. That is day 6 of training camp. Now let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say before we get out of here. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, Eddie Goldman told Herbig to retire first. It's funny you brought that up, video channel, because when Rio, he was the one that broke the news to me this morning. I was taking my kids to daycare this morning, to summer camp / daycare. And I'm in the car and I get a text in our group text, and Rio's like, Herbig retired. And I'm like, and I just stared at the phone for a second, like, what? And then I just started laughing because I knew what it meant. And I immediately shot back at Rio. I said, well, looks like you were wrong about, I said, looks like you were eyeballing the wrong guy the whole time. Because Rio's like, I don't trust Eddie Goldman. Until we get to the season, Eddie Goldman is a guy that might retire and all this stuff. And so we got a little kick out of that. But Cam, Nate Herbig, hanging it up. JLG, and let me just, for the record, let the record reflect that Nate Herbig was a basic ass NFL player. Like we built him up to be this ultimate Swiss Army knife, interior offensive lineman. He was a basic ass backup. Like there was no guarantee he was going to make this roster either. But look, he couldn't be any worse than goddamn Michael Dieter in my mind. And that's what I was telling myself. And so would have loved to have seen what that would have looked like, but guess we will never get that opportunity now, will we? JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. JLG writes, I haven't heard anyone mention Johnny Newton yet. I guess it's still early, but we need Johnny to have a big season for us. I've heard Johnny's name mentioned a couple times, but to your point, like there hasn't been any Johnny Newton splash plays. There hasn't been a ton of Johnny Newton, fanfare. There hasn't been any reporters like, yo, Johnny Newton Johnny Newton had a batted ball. Johnny Newton had some pressure on his play. I've seen those, tweets from people that are at the park. I saw an interview with Johnny Newton talking about cutting his hair, why he did it, that sort of thing. But yeah, it hasn't been a lot of conversation around Johnny Newton. And I know when Rio went to practice, he was like, yo, Johnny running with the force. He's like the 4th defensive tackle. But that's because of the depth that we have at defensive tackle. He's going to play. He's going to see the field. And we're going to see. I'm hoping that he's under the radar. Nobody's talking about him. And then, boom, you look up and Johnny Newton has 5.5 sacks this year. That's the hope. But, if it's another 1.5 sack season for Johnny Newton, then you may start to worry, because the whole thing was, especially if we have the lead and he's getting opportunities to rush the quarterback, because the whole thing was, well, last year he didn't have a full offseason, give him some grace. Well, full offseason this year, he's supposed to have been working out with Jonathan Allen in the offseason. He lost some weight. Like, I don't know if Johnny needed to lose any weight because he was already undersized, but Johnny's in great shape. I seen him and I said, whoa, and Johnny looks good. The question is it going to manifest itself into pressure on the quarterback and producing, splash plays and making an impact? Only one way to find out. Will Kavanaugh, been a member for 30 months. Salute. Who writes, I can see Cliff Kingsbury make a hide the running back play with Bill. I don't know what Cliff has up his sleeve. We know Cliff has an extensive bag of tricks. He decided to pull one out of the bag in week 18, and it should have been a touchdown on a perfectly executed play. I did not know that De'Ami Brown was left-handed. None of us knew that De'Ami Brown was left-handed, for that matter. And so this was a perfect trick play. He throws a dot to Olamide Zaccheaus, and he drops it, right? Cliff has some shit. We saw the throwback screen to Austin Eckler all the way on the perimeter, which was gorgeous. We've seen some plays where we go, that shit right there, Cliff. Feed me more. Maybe he has some sort of, trick up his sleeve with Bill as the primary option. We'll see. Pit Fight Entertainment. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, it concerns me that Johnny Newton is rarely mentioned. Somebody else brought that up earlier. I get it that you haven't heard Johnny Newton's name a ton, but think about all the guys that you haven't heard their names a ton to this point. And have you heard Dorrance Armstrong's name a bunch? No. Are you concerned? Have you heard Frankie Louvu's name a bunch? No, you haven't. We might have brought Frankie up, but not because Frankie was making a bunch of plays in camp. It's camp. How many times do we talk about dudes making splash plays that don't even make the roster? You don't want to get caught up in, I haven't heard such and such's name. That doesn't mean they're not putting in good work. They're just not making splash plays. But especially when you're on the D-line, too often we get caught up in, tangible plays, sacks, batted balls, tackles for loss. We get caught up in that. But sometimes it's the plays that they don't actually make, but, the hockey assist, if you will. They get the instant, penetration that leads to a dude having to bounce the play out wider than he wanted to go, that leads to the tackle for loss for another guy, right? That's the thing that we don't talk about a lot of times with defensive linemen. And so maybe Johnny Newton's doing some of those things. He didn't get the sack, or he didn't get the initial pressure. Well, he got the initial pressure that led to somebody else getting pressure that led to an interception. We don't know. So at the end of the day, just be patient with Johnny. Wait till the preseason games, wait to see what Johnny's up to, and then wait till the regular season, and we'll see, right? Is it concerning you haven't heard his name? Not for me, it isn't. But, again, I understand if that's something that you need to hear to feel comfortable with him, but I wouldn't put too much stock into it right now. Pit Fight Entertainment. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, apologies for the repeat question. No apologies necessary. That's what we do. We talk about things here. Whether it's already been asked or not, it's all good. Really appreciate you. Big Dog. Been a member for 13 months. Who writes, I'll see you and the Kings on the 24th, my guy. Lou, look at that. Perfect opportunity for me to talk about the Commanders Kings live and in color on August the 24th, the day after the final preseason game versus the Baltimore Ravens, talking about the upcoming season, giving you a prediction for each and every single game and an ultimate record for the season. Also, predicting the 53-man roster. That's going to be something that we will really be talking about heavy around that time as we get to the end of August. And, of course, a toast to the season and more. We're going to have some giveaways. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. Really looking forward to meeting a lot of you, chopping it up with y'all. This is a rare occurrence. I haven't even met the Kings, not a single one of them in person. So not only is this going to be a really cool event for you guys, shit, it's cool for me. It's cool for all of us because we haven't met each other. We got great chemistry on the screen, but we've never been in the presence of one another. You guys are going to get to see that firsthand. We're going to meet a lot of you, chop it up with y'all. It's going to be pretty cool. Y'all know I don't come outside a lot. This is one of those rare occurrences where I'm outside. So I'm looking forward to meeting y'all. Y'all are looking forward to meeting. Like Rico lives in Atlanta, so it's going to be cool to have him come out. A lot of y'all wanted to meet Rico. Here's an opportunity to do it. Ed and Rio also going to be in the building. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to meet you guys. Bart Scott. Can't wait. Also, big shout out to my guy, Twan, over at the Hilltop RVA for helping set this up. He's been tremendous throughout this whole process. And this is going to be a hell of an event over at the Crystal City Sports Pub in Arlington, Virginia. Man, I cannot wait to chop it up. We got a whole floor to ourselves. We are going to turn up. If you haven't already done so, get your tickets now. Tickets are available. I am pleased to report that we have already sold over 50 tickets. So there are less than 100 tickets available. These tickets are going fast. So if you want to be in the building, we only have 150 tickets. Only 150 tickets are available for this event. So don't wait to the last minute. I mean, let me see if I'm going to be able to go. Get your tickets, man. Get your tickets if you want to be in the building. Don't wait till the last minute to see if you're going to try to be in the building or not. Probably won't be any tickets. These things are moving quickly. And so I'm excited about it. And I'm excited for all of you who are already going to be in the building, who have already bought your tickets. And I'm looking forward to the rest of you who are trying to decide whether you want to come or not. What are you waiting on? Get your tickets, come on out, and have a great time. Looking forward to meeting all of you and looking forward to having a great time on the 24th at Crystal City Sports Pub, chopping up with you and, of course, the Commanders, Kings. So, looking forward to meeting you, big dog. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy, C-Mac. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, as always. 2 questions. Shoot. 1, how do you see the red zone offense being different this season and why? And 2, do you think the offense is still missing a piece? If so, what is it to hit its max? The red zone offense, I think you're going to see a lot more big formations. Remember the touchdown pass Jaden threw to Trent Scott, his very first touchdown pass of his NFL career in week 3 against Cincinnati? I think you're going to see more of those type of sets. We didn't get into a lot of those. We would be at the 3-yard line. Like, first of all, we were a very proficient rush offense in the red zone. I always feel like the best teams in the red zone are the ones that can run the football. We were a very good rush offense in the red zone, whether it was B-Rob, whether it was Austin Eckler, whether it was Jeremy McNichols, or it was Jaden himself. We ran the football very effectively in the red zone last year. Chris Rodriguez had a couple of touchdowns in the red zone as a rusher as well. We spread the wealth, and we were very proficient at doing so. However, we didn't throw it out of big personnel and big packages a lot last season. Mariota came in, had the play fake, and then the boot to Ben Sinnott against the Panthers. We didn't see a lot of that. Jaden had the boot to Trent Scott. We didn't see a lot of that, right? Think about how many times you saw Jaden boot off play action fake out of, a big personnel, whether it's 12, but more likely than not 13 is what I'm referring to, and throw a touchdown pass. I can only think of the Cincinnati game with Trent Scott. I can't think of another instance where he wasn't in gun, spreading the team out and then doing his thing. It was usually in that setting that he threw the ball into the end zone. It wasn't a lot of Jaden under center, bootleg, 3 tight ends on the field, trying to get active, right? I think you can see more of that this year. I think you can see more of Jaden under center in those situations. So I do think the red zone offense, and then you still got Debo, right? That's another big piece of this offensive puzzle that is going to, really give teams fits. Is you got Debo down in the red zone. There's so many things you can do with him. You can even use him as a decoy. Like the first week, I'm going nuts with Debo in terms of how I feature him, right? Red zone, jet sweeps, in the backfield, I'm doing all kinds of shit with Debo because I want to put that on tape so that when I send him in motion, I want the defense overreacting to him. The dude in the slot right there runs a slant, and Jaden just fakes it to Debo, throws the pop pass, a quick slant or whatever, right? And it's an easy touchdown because so many eyes are on Debo because of what he did the week before or the 2 weeks prior, whatever, right? That's another wrinkle that we have at our disposal that, wasn't there a season ago. You could run Debo in motion, have him come back around, or run in motion, stop, pivot, turn, and reverse, and then get it to him immediately, right? Like, there's so many things you can do with Debo. And then let him create, because he's a load to deal with out in space down by the goal line, right? Down inside the green zone, as teams call it. Like, so many things you can do with Debo, right? That's going to really help unlock this red zone offense even further. It was already a good red zone offense to begin with. Do I think the offense is still missing a piece? If so, what is it to hit its max? I really don't. I mean, if Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is what we think he is, if Bill is what we think he is, and he's able to hit the field sooner rather than later, I think we got everything we need right now. If Ertz gives us what he gave us last year, if Terry's going to be back in the saddle doing what he does, Debo is the complement to him. Now you got Noah Brown as the 3, and all those other guys. You got Jalen Lane as another weapon. I think we got everything we need from a skill position standpoint. The offensive line is vastly improved. I think that's a good group up front that can protect Jaden and allow him to operate. I honestly, like, could we have elite stuff? Sure. Could you upgrade receiver? Could you upgrade tight end? Yeah, you could. Could you upgrade running back? Yes. But for us to be successful, do you have all the pieces necessary? Yeah. With Terry in the mix, yeah, you got everything you need. I don't really think we're necessarily missing a piece. The thing that we wanted, and I still want to see, is a dynamic back. And I think Bill can be that. I do. But how long will it be before he's back there getting meaningful touches will be the question. But he gives us the thing that we felt like we've been missing and longing for, which is a dynamic back that can make guys miss, BYOB, and potentially hit the home run. So if he's in there, I think we got everything we need. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, playing squares means 4 points. 1 QB, 1 running back, and 2 wide receivers. Those are your main offense. Next time, consult me, Lou. Yeah, so that's not exactly how that works. Like, you have 12 personnel, or in your case, that's 12 personnel, right? If you got 1 running back and 2 receivers on the field, you have 12 personnel because you got 2 tight ends on the field. That's what that means. So it's not quite how that works because Zach Ertz is one of our main weapons. But again, hey, you have at it. It's a Tuesday night. You're probably already 2 sheets to the win. At least this was a coherent thought. All right. It wasn't right. So I'm going to treat you like your teachers probably treated you when you were in high school. I'm going to give you a little bit of credit for actually trying to do the work. You know how in math class you used to show your work? This shit is wrong, right? I'm going to put a big ass X on it. This shit is wrong. But at least you tried to show your work. I can give you a little bit of credit for that. That's what that statement was. And I appreciate that. I can read it. It's coherent. That's better than most times that you comment. So I'm proud of you. Hey, let's give it up for Duncan, man. Hell yeah. Every word spelled correctly may not make 100% sense, but every word is spelled correctly. Everything is coherent. You don't get that often. So shout out to Duncan, man. Damn it, man. Y'all know what it is. In any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of Training Camp Confidential. Day number 6 of training camp for the Commanders in the books. No practice tomorrow, or at least a walkthrough. I think it is a brief walkthrough for the team. But so there won't be any reporting So we'll have time to talk about other, topics and things of that nature. I got a couple of videos, a couple of times. You'll see me more than once tomorrow. That's for sure. Commanders Kings will ride again live tomorrow night. So be sure to check us out over on the Commanders Kings channel tomorrow night. Looking forward to chopping it up with the Kings, having a bunch of fun as we always do. Remember, Thursday, Hall of Fame game in July, last day of the month. We're getting Lions Chargers for the Hall of Fame game. That should be a ton of fun. That signals the start of the season, and you know what that means for me. It's time to go to work. So I'll be live after that game. Look, we all know the game ain't shit. Trey Lance is starting. The game ain't shit. But it's not the game itself. It's what the game signifies that is important. And that signal is we won't be without football in some capacity for the next 6 months. So looking forward to that as well. But in any event, I got another super chat here from Walt Disney. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. I see what you did there, Walt Disney. I see what you did there. I was playing Madden 06. Bro, receivers were big as F back then. And running backs too. Everyone was bigger, different players, specimens. I had a lot of people react to my comment about not being able to play with the Redskins back in 6, 7, well, basically 08, 9, and 10. And first of all, if you responded with a comment that was something to the effect of, hey, I don't know what you was doing, Louie T. I was giving dudes work back in 10 with the Redskins. No, the hell you were not. Not with Ryan Terrain and Donovan McNabb. No, you weren't. Stop lying. And if you were giving out ass whoopings, if you were putting in work, you were playing against some straight bums. You weren't playing against the demons I was playing against. You weren't winning no money playing with the 10 or the 09 or the 08 skins on Madden. I'm telling you right now, not in the circles I ran in, you would have got your ass ruled. 21-0, get a sticks up, and make sure you leave that money right there where it's at. Don't trust me. Not in them days, you won't win in shit with the skins. Trust me. You won't that nice. Trust me. So, and yes, 06 Madden, think about Joe Juravicious, right? Those are the types of receivers that existed back in the day. Joe Juravicious was like 6'5". Like, he was in the slot. 6'5" slot receiver. That's the type of time we was on back. I remember my homeboy, he was a Bucks fan. And he would just throw the ball up to Joe Juravicious and then jump up. And you couldn't do shit about it because the Bucks just won the Super Bowl in 02. And so Joe Juravicious was like a cheat code. 6'5", slot, throw it up. He jumped high as a bitch in the air, and you couldn't stop it. And he had Brad Johnson, so he was super accurate. Yeah, it was a different time. Dudes at the linebacker position, like Ray Lewis, was like 250. Like I mean, football, the further back you go in football, the bigger the dudes were in terms of like size. Like, they were a lot slower. The athleticism wasn't like it is now. Guys are obviously to adjust to the athleticism that exists today. You got to put smaller guys on the field that can run with these athletes. Levon Kirkland was a middle linebacker. Levon Kirkland was like 285 playing middle linebacker. Like, you could never do that today. Never do that today. It was a different game, bro. The shoulder pads was like this big. Legion of Doom shits. All they was doing was missing the spikes. I mean, the game was totally different. Think about Jamal Lewis at the running back position. Jamal Lewis would be ass today. Straight up. Straight up and down. Jamal Lewis would be ass today. Who are we kidding? That man ran for 2,000 yards in a season. Okay? Different game. Different game. He's no Derrick Henry. He's no Nick Chubb. Okay? But he ran for 2,000 yards. So you got to put respect on his name. But it was just a different game back then. He took baby steps when he ran. but he was a punisher. Peyton Hillis was on the cover of Madden. Again, I can't make this stuff up. It was a different game. The further back you go, backs are bigger, receivers are bigger, linebackers are bigger, guys are slower. It's a different game. It's a much different game. Now there are the outliers, the guys that could have played in today's NFL and you wouldn't blink. But it's a lot of guys who you like, yo, how in the hell was he nice? You just got to think about the time and what it was and understand that it was a different game. Walt Disney, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Changed my mind. Early 2000s to mid 2000s was peak NFL. Perfect balance of athleticism and physicality. 2010 started going downhill, soft, pass happy. Well, you remember they changed some of the rules too. And again, when you change the rules, teams have to adjust and adapt. Organizations have to adjust and adapt. Like there was a level of physicality that came with the game that was kind of phased out because of the Patriots and how dominant they were with their defensive tactics and how free-flowing offenses like the Chiefs back then with Trent Green and Priest Holmes and Tony Gonzalez, they weren't able to function in the playoffs because teams like the Patriots would just absolutely molest them. Like they would assault them with battery, right? It would be an assault with battery. And the Colts was another great team to play on Madden with, just like the Chiefs were, till you found a physical team like the Patriots that would just bust them in the mouth straight up. Hey, what you gonna do? The league said, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change the rules so they can't keep doing this shit. And it really changed the way that football was played. And look, the whole concussion thing had a big part in, making the game quote unquote safer, but we like violence. That's why we watch football. We like the big hits, but truth be told, that's a good thing. We just saw a dude walk into the NFL building and try to kill people. He killed, 4 people and claim he had CTE. Like that's a real thing though. We've seen, countless dudes kill themselves, whether you're talking about Andre Dirty Waters or Junior Seau, who committed suicide based off of CTE. Like we don't want guys taking massive blows to the head. That's not over and over again, repeatedly. That's not cool. So the sissification of football for some has taken place over the last 20 years, but the game is in a better state because you can play good, clean football without hitting somebody in their head. You know what I mean? So I don't love all of the rule changes. I don't love some of the things that they've done to eradicate some of the physical play. Some of these hits are clean hits and they still throw flags for them. I don't love that. But I don't know if the early to mid 2000s was the peak of the NFL, just because the amount of sheer athleticism that exists in the league right now is crazy. The level of quarterback play right now is crazy, and they had some really good quarterbacks in that mid 2000s with Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees. There were some really good quarterbacks that were up and coming in the game, but I don't know if they're better than Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, and some of the guys that we're seeing right now. I don't know if they're better than these. I mean, athletically, they're not better. I know that for a fact. Their ability to play from Tom Brady, obviously, if I didn't mention him, shame on me if I didn't mention Tom Brady. Athletically, it's not close, but their ability to play from the pocket was unworldly. It's uncanny. But these guys are getting better and better from the pocket too. So, it's hard to compare eras. It really is, because the rules were different, and the game was different. So, I hear you. Walt Disney, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. I don't know if I did this last time, but double up. Thank you for doubling up. He says, but them boys was hitting offense and defense. You're not wrong. It was a different game. I mean, think about Sean Taylor. We're Commanders fans here. And, you know, Sean Taylor was part of the reason we love Sean Taylor is because he was lighting dudes up. Straight up and down. Had dudes like Terrell Owens afraid to catch the football. Alligator arm and shit. He was different. And part of the reason we loved him is because he was an enforcer. Forget about the athleticism. The reason I love Sean Taylor is because of the athleticism. I haven't seen a guy before. I hadn't seen a guy before, and I haven't seen a guy since with that frame at 6'2", 220, 6'2", 6'3", 220, run the way he did, but ultimately possess the ball skills and do the things. Like Sean was different athletically. Then you factor in the physicality to go with that athleticism and the ball skills and all the things that he presented. He was just different. So, yeah, I could see you talking about them hitting. Yeah, I get that for sure. It's a different game without question. And we love people getting lit up. I mean, there used to be a segment on ESPN's Countdown called Jacked Up. They had to remove that because they didn't want to promote, you know, hits that looked like they could result in a concussion. They had to get rid of that segment. We used to love that. You got jacked up. We used to love that. I mean, one of the craziest plays I remember seeing was James Harrison hitting a Browns receiver coming across the field, and the man dropped down to his knees like he had just been shot through the heart. Like it's one of the nastiest hits you'll ever see. This is a different game, bro. I don't think he got flagged on the play. I don't think he got fined. None of that. It's a different game. It's a different game. Walt Disney, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes? I was watching the 04 Redskins versus the Steelers. It was so refreshing to watch. No crazy pass game, just hard-nosed defense, run game, still fun. That ain't for everybody, though. You're probably in the minority. Most people don't want to watch two teams playing hard-nosed football and, you know, the score being 17-13. Most people don't want to see that. Most people want to see points being scored. Most people would rather see, and again, I'm not speaking for everyone. There's people out there that love the 20-17 rock fight, you know, and it might not be a rock fight. It might be a really good, well-played game. But most people would, like, you know how many times I come on live, because I go live after every primetime game, and it's a 20-13 game, or it's 17-10, or it's 23-17. And like, man, that game was boring. It put me to sleep. And I'm like, I enjoyed the game. You know how many people? But let the game be 41-34. We're going to talk about, oh my God, what a fun game. 37-33. Oh my God, what a game that was. You know, like most people want to see point. The NFL understands people want to see points scored. People don't want to see low scoring defensive struggle. And so, yeah, the hard hits are cool, but they still want to see points scored at the end of the day. And that's part of the reason why they changed the rules, because they know people get excited about points being scored. You go to camp, and the biggest oohs and ahs are by plays, you know, are from plays that are usually made by skill guys, or, you know, an interception, something big, right? It ain't because a guy made a nice hard tackle for 1 yard, you know, near the line of scrimmage. That's not what draws the oohs and ahs. It's the one-handed catch. It's the big play in the end zone. You know, it's the deep ball that gets picked off, that sort of thing. right? That's what people like. So I understand. I get where you're coming from, but you're over here, waxing poetically, and there's people that absolutely rock with what you're saying, and they're just as nostalgic as you are. But so it's a different game, and a lot more people enjoy the game the way it is now than the way that it was back then. So anyway, I digress. Anywho, that's gonna do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Training Camp Confidential. You know what it is. Post up, take command. Oh, let me shout out to Condo P, aka Playoff P, aka the legendary Playoff P, for sending me the super chat that I missed yesterday. Right as I was getting off the air, I had a super chat pop up that I didn't get to. So I want to go ahead and get to it right now. And it's from Jose Martin. Shout out to Jose Martin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Jose writes, I'm not tripping with the Terry situation. I feel like both parties will come to a resolution. And so do I. Look, I'm only tripping over the fact that this offense is sputtering in camp. He's not getting the reps with Jaden, and nobody wins when Terry's out. Because the defense isn't getting the work that they should be. The offense isn't getting the work that it should be. And that sucks. It continues to be somewhat of a distraction. It's not that big of a distraction, but it's a distraction nonetheless. Ultimately, I'm of the mindset that it's going to get done, and so I'm not tripping. I'm not tripping. I'm right there with you, Jose. Right there with you. Walt Disney, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Walt writes, low-scoring games can still be good football. I agree. You're preaching to, I'm the choir. You're preaching to me. I agree with you. I'm telling you, do you know how many times I show up on overtime, which is the shows that I do after Monday, Thursday, and Sunday night games, and the game was 23-17 or 17-13. And I'm like, I enjoyed the game. And like, that game was boring. I fell asleep. That game was terrible. You know how many times I've had to convince people, or try to at least, that was a pretty good game. I enjoyed the game. I can't speak for anybody else. I enjoyed the game. Just because it's low scoring doesn't mean, now we've seen some bad games that were low scoring. I think about, Russell Wilson's first year in Denver, and there was at least 2 or 3 games. The first game of the season on Monday night was him returning to Seattle. That was a bad game, but it wasn't terrible. Just a bunch of fumbles inside. I think it was the first game I had ever watched where a team fumbled inside the 1-yard line multiple times in the same game. I'd never seen anything like it before. But think about the game the Broncos had against the Colts that year. Matt Ryan was with the Colts. That might have been one of the worst football games I've ever watched in my life. There was another game Russell Wilson and the Broncos played against the 49ers that year. Or it might have been the Colts against the 49ers. I feel like it was Denver Broncos and the 49ers, because all the bad games that year that were on, they put Russell Wilson on in Denver because they thought he was next in line. Remember the previous 2 years, quarterbacks that it's changed teams and won the Super Bowl, right? So it felt like, oh, well, Russ is up next. Brady won it in 2020. Then Stafford won it in 21. So Russ was in 22, and they felt like, oh, he's next. Let's put him on a bunch of times. And they had the Broncos on primetime 5 out of the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. And it was abuse is what it was. It was abuse. What's the movie where if you see it, then you kill yourself? You see, it's like a thing that you see, and once you see it, you automatically kill yourself. What's the name of that movie that was on Netflix? Y'all leave it in the comment section. Help me out. What's the name of that movie? He says, where the offense have to earn every yard hard. just more aesthetically pleasing to watch, in my opinion. Yeah, no. Again, for some people, not all of them, some people, that is the exact thing that they want to see. But not everyone is subscribing to that in 2025, unfortunately. And that's okay. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to enjoy watching professional tackle football. Remember Leah, thank you. Bird Box. Yes, Walt Disney Bird Box. Yes. Remember the scene where he takes the old lady and he forces her eyelids open, right? And makes her see it so she can kill herself. That's sort of like how some of these low-scoring games were, and especially that year in 2022, watching the Broncos, it's like they were forcing us to keep our eyes open and watch these Broncos. Oh my God, I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch. And NFL was like, you go watch this goddamn Denver Broncos game. God damn it. They were forcing us to watch that shit. It was bad. Not all low-scoring games are like that, right? But that's the stigma that they get. That's the stigma that they get. In this pass-happy, wide-open league with offenses going up and down. Look, they changed the rules again to where you get the ball at the 35-yard line if it's a touchback. I mean, it was already bad at the 30 as is. 25 was bad. I grew up in a day and age where a touchback was at the 20. You had to go 80 yards. Then it was 75. Then it was 70. Now it's 65 yards if you kick the ball into the end zone. The penalty for kicking it out of bounds on a kickoff isn't that great anymore. Because if you kick it out of the end, if you kick it up, touchback into the end zone, and you kick it out, it's a 5-yard difference. Who gives a shit? The 35, the 40, it's basically the same. I mean, the game's changed. Game's changed dramatically. It's a different game. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll be back tomorrow. I have a couple of shows for you tomorrow. I will be Commanders Kings will be live tomorrow night, or tomorrow night. And Thursday we got football. We got action. So it's an exciting time. What a time to be alive. In any event, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. Once again, Commanders Kings live and in color, August 24th, Crystal City Sports Pub. Get your tickets. Only 150 available tickets, and already over 50 of them gone. Finito. We're less than 100 tickets available. You want to be in the building? Get your tickets. Don't wait. Be great. Get your tickets now. I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Peace. Damn you, Nate Herbig.